Regardless to what you may think of Louis Farrakhan, America is big enough to handle controversial views. It is wrong for anybody to say that somebody, no matter how controversial their views, should not be exposed to intellectuals or those who are in the pursuit of knowledge. If you have been taught as well as I believe you have, you are intelligent enough to reject a hater, aren't you? Aren't you? Are you? You are intelligent enough to reject an anti-Semite. You are intelligent enough to reject a bigot, a racist. If such I am, then reject me. But don't let someone categorize me as that and then you condemn me as that without ever hearing me and understanding me.
For centuries, a destructive lie has been pushed upon the world. The idea that whiteness signifies superiority and blackness signifies inferiority. This doctrine has been planted into every institution, including education, religion, media, and politics, until it became so normalized that generations lived under its weight without fully questioning its roots. It was never about truth, but about power. White supremacy was engineered to dominate, to justify oppression, and to strip black people of dignity and humanity. And the companion to this lie, the myth of black inferiority, was weaponized to break the spirit of an entire people. But history, culture, and the undeniable contributions of black men and women prove that this false doctrine was always fraudulent. In this video, guided by the words and wisdom of Minister Louis Farrakhan, we confront the sickness of these ideas, expose their origins, and reclaim the narrative of truth and strength that has always belonged to black people. If you believe the chains of falsehood must be broken with truth, stay with me. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss the messages designed to lift us from lies into liberation. Without further ado, let's get back to what Minister Louis Farrakhan has to say.
America, at least the founding fathers thought so, that America was big enough to entertain the idea, the revolutionary idea of freedom of speech. Now, in the freedom of speech that was given to the American people by the founding fathers of this great nation is a saving grace for this country. For to stifle dissent may be to stifle a truth that could correct a path that the nation is on that may be popular but not correct. But to allow a voice or voices of dissent to speak freely, that the American people may hear them and judge them and weigh them, could be the salvation of this republic. Something is wrong in the American society. It is not Farrakhan who made it wrong. I just got here a few days ago. I am not the author of bigotry. I am not the author of racism. I am not the author of anti-Semitism. I was birthed into that kind of world. So why blame me for what you've been suffering all along? Racism pervades the American society. Agreed. Racism pervades this institution. So why make the people believe that my presence is going to exacerbate racial division? Why make people think that my being here is going to increase racial tensions and polarize people? Why be a hypocrite? You know that racism exists on this campus. You know that. And you know that you are not getting along well before I got here. You know that.
America, at least in its founding vision, proclaimed itself a nation bold enough to embrace the revolutionary idea of freedom of speech. The Founding Fathers, flawed as they were, placed into the Constitution a principle that would become one of the saving graces of this republic: the right to speak freely, even in dissent. That freedom was not gifted as a token of generosity, but carved into the framework of the nation because they understood a dangerous truth. To silence dissent is to silence correction. To smother criticism is to smother the very chance of renewal. A society may move along a path that is popular, even celebrated, yet still wrong. Only through the freedom of expression can truth rise to the surface and offer a course correction before the nation drifts too far. Throughout history, nations that strangled dissent met their downfall. In the Roman Empire, emperors who silenced critics lost the ability to hear warnings of corruption until collapse consumed them. In the 20th century, Nazi Germany outlawed dissent and branded every challenge as treason, creating an echo chamber that fueled genocide. The United States, by contrast, survived its most turbulent moments, precisely because voices of dissent were not fully silenced. Abolitionists, though despised in their time, used freedom of speech to expose the barbarity of slavery. Civil rights leaders, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Malcolm X, wielded speech to rattle the conscience of a nation still addicted to racial oppression. Each time, dissent that was condemned as divisive turned out to be redemptive. And yet, when a voice like Minister Farrakhan raises hard truths, the instinct of the American establishment is often not to engage but to suppress. He is blamed for divisions that predate his birth. He is accused of creating tensions that were carved into America's foundations long before he spoke a word. Racism is not his invention. It is the inheritance of a system that commodified black bodies on plantations, that segregated schools and neighborhoods, and that continues to operate in institutions today. So why, he asks, should his presence be painted as the problem? Why should his words be treated as the spark of division when the fire was already burning in the very walls of society? The charge is hypocrisy. For long before Farrakhan's speeches echoed on college campuses, racism pervaded those very campuses. Students of color knew exclusion. Faculty knew bias. Communities knew discrimination. It is dishonest to suggest that one man's arrival created a fracture that was already there. The deeper truth is this: Farrakhan's critics fear not division, but exposure. They fear that his presence forces America to confront what it would rather hide. Universities, government institutions, and media outlets carry within them unspoken prejudices that polite conversation refuses to name. When a voice of dissent makes those prejudices plain, when he insists that racism is not a thing of the past, but a living, breathing structure, the comfortable narrative of progress is shaken. Freedom of speech is only noble if it protects the inconvenient voice, the one that disrupts illusions of unity and forces society to wrestle with uncomfortable realities. Farrakhan's words remind us that the true test of America's founding promise is not whether it allows agreeable speech, but whether it can endure the fire of inconvenient truth. And in that sense, his presence is not a threat to America's stability, but a measure of its maturity. For a nation that cannot withstand dissent is a nation that cannot grow, and a republic that cannot bear truth is one already in decay.
It's nice, isn't it, that we've been given 1 month to think about ourselves. If you notice, no Caucasian, no Hispanic, no Native American has been given any kind of preferential treatment where history is concerned. You don't have a Ukrainian History Week, a Jewish History Week, a Chicano History Week, an Arab History Week, Irish History Week, come on, or month. Why? Why Black history? Are you special, or are your needs special? Everybody else knows something about themselves, and their own history and culture is a priority with them, and their parents teach them, and they have books to read about themselves that they don't need to come to Oswego or any other college to have somebody deal with their history. But black people have to have some special provision that we may know something about our history. Why? To the white students that are here, the Hispanic students that are here, this is a marvelous opportunity for you, because in reality, as we have been deprived in this society of the knowledge of our own history, you have also been deprived of the knowledge of our history. So because you don't know us, really know us, you cannot fully appreciate or respect what we have contributed to the onward march of civilization. Black students who do not know themselves, who do not know their history, cannot properly respect self. So it's difficult for you as a black student to command the respect of others if you are not a self-respecting community. And you cannot be a self-respecting black community if you don't know your history, know the roots that have produced the fruit. And if you know the root and appreciate the root, then you know the fruit and know the seed that is contained in the fruit. Then you know the past, you understand the present, you are equipped to deal with the future.
It is interesting, is it not, that this nation has seen fit to give black people 1 month to think about themselves. For 30 days, America pauses to acknowledge the existence of a people whose labor built the country, whose creativity shaped its culture, and whose struggle exposed its contradictions. And yet, no other group has been given such a special allotment. There is no Ukrainian History Month, no Jewish History Month, no Irish, Arab, or Native American History Month. Other communities have never needed such a designation because their history has been preserved, protected, and taught as part of the greater cultural fabric. Their children can open books and find themselves. Their parents pass down stories that align with the history taught in classrooms. Their identities are reinforced by society. But black people in America were cut from their roots, and so a special provision had to be made. That provision is Black History Month. Some ask, why do black people need this? The answer is simple: because the knowledge of black history was stolen, erased, and rewritten by the very society that benefited from black suffering. Enslaved Africans were stripped of languages, religions, and cultural practices. Generations were taught to believe they had no past worth knowing, only chains that marked them as inferior. After slavery, institutions continued the lie, portraying black people as caricatures in films, reducing their contributions to footnotes in textbooks, and making invisibility the norm. Without intervention, entire generations of black children would never know that Africa birthed ancient civilizations like Kush, Mali, and Songhai, or that black scientists, inventors, and activists transformed the modern world. For white students, Hispanic students, or anyone else who wonders about the purpose of Black History Month, the truth is this: you too have been deprived. Because you do not truly know black history, you do not truly know America. You cannot fully appreciate the inventions of George Washington Carver, the genius of Katherine Johnson, who helped send astronauts to space, or the radical bravery of Harriet Tubman, who guided enslaved people to freedom. You cannot understand the rhythm of American music without recognizing the genius of black artistry that created jazz, blues, gospel, and hip-hop. The onward march of civilization has been shaped by Black contributions, but when those contributions are hidden, everyone loses the chance to see the full picture of humanity's progress. For Black students, the stakes are even higher. A person who does not know their history cannot properly respect themselves. A community ignorant of its roots cannot demand respect from others. Knowledge of history is not just an academic pursuit. It is the soil from which dignity grows. To know the root is to understand the fruit. To honor the seed within the fruit is to prepare for the harvest of the future. Black History Month is not about isolation or special treatment. It is about restoration, about piecing back together the knowledge that was violently taken so that a people may stand upright again and walk with pride into the future.
Now, is this a crime of omission or is this a crime of commission? We say it is both a crime of commission and a crime of omission. And this criminal activity is not just directed against Black people, it is criminal against all people, because to rob one segment of the population of the dynamics of itself is to rob that segment that robs the other segment of the dynamics of itself. You cannot dehumanize me without in that same process dehumanize yourself. So when you take away from a people their whole history and then lie to them about who they are and what their fathers have contributed to the advancement of civilization, you have struck a death blow to that people, but it will come back and haunt you at a time when you least expect it. A Black man by the name of Carter G. Woodson, a man that we as Black people should honor and respect. That man saw and said that as a tree without roots is dead, a people without a knowledge of their history is also dead. Now, in death, there is disintegration. In disintegration, there is the stench that comes up from disintegration, decomposition. And if you look at our people as a whole, nobody wants anything really to do with us. And the sad thing is, we don't want anything to do with self. The stench of our attitude, the stench of the decomposition of a people stinks in the nostrils of civilized people, and therefore people back away from Black people. I'm talking about peoples of the world. They don't understand us. They don't know what has happened to us. They look at us and say, what's wrong with them? They've been here longer than any other people, and they have less to show for it.
Now we must ask, is this a crime of omission or is it a crime of commission? The answer is both. It is a deliberate act to erase a people's history, and it is also a willful neglect to restore it. And this crime does not wound Black people alone. It wounds all of humanity. To strip one community of its dignity, its knowledge, and its identity is to weaken the entire structure of society. For you cannot dehumanize me without, in that same process, dehumanizing yourself. The falsehoods that deny my humanity will ultimately poison yours as well. When a people are robbed of their history, when their fathers' contributions to civilization are denied or distorted, the blow is devastating. It cripples the mind, it shatters self-respect, and it corrodes the community from within. And yet that same theft leaves a stain on the thief. The lies told about Black history were never contained. They bled into the very fabric of American life. Generations of white children were raised on distorted textbooks that painted slavery as benevolent, Reconstruction as a failure, and Black people as passive recipients of freedom rather than active architects of it. Those children grew up miseducated, believing themselves superior when in reality they were victims of a poisoned narrative. The denial of truth truth ricochets. It comes back, often at the moment least expected, as unrest, division, and distrust. Carter G. Woodson, the brilliant historian often called the father of Black history, understood this tragedy with profound clarity. He said that a tree without roots is dead, and so too is a people without knowledge of its history. He recognized that history is not just about memory, it is about survival. Without roots, there is no nourishment, no growth, no future. And without historical consciousness, people wander aimlessly, disconnected from the greatness of their past and unprepared for the challenges of the future. Look closely at the condition of Black America today, and you see the wounds Woodson warned of. In death, there is disintegration. In disintegration, there is a stench that rises from the breakdown. That stench is not literal, but cultural. It is the scent of hopelessness, the odor of a people told repeatedly they are nothing, until some believe it themselves. It shows up in fractured communities, in self-destructive behavior, in the quiet acceptance of inferiority, and the world looking upon this recoils. They ask, what is wrong with them? They have been here for centuries, and yet they have less to show than others. But what they fail to understand is that the destruction was deliberate. The erasure of history was not an accident. It was a strategy. To keep a people ignorant of their past is to chain them to dependency in the present. To miseducate them is to program them against themselves. And when people no longer value their own worth, others find it easy to dismiss them. This is the haunting consequence of the crime. The world misunderstands Black people, while Black people are left struggling to understand themselves. Until history is reclaimed and truth is restored, the decomposition continues.
Why am I saying this? The educational system in America that has deprived Black people has now ended up depriving the people for whom it was originally intended. Listen. This educational system has to be revamped. Why do we say that? Because no discipline that you study does the author of that discipline state that they have absolute knowledge of that discipline. Their knowledge of that discipline is at best faulty. So to say that this is psychology, this is sociology, this is astronomy, this is chemistry, this is physics, this is architecture, this is medicine, this is law. But you don't give the students the mind to stand on top of those who have advanced that discipline, that they may see beyond their teachers to continue to evolve that discipline toward the absolute. Then if the students don't see beyond their teachers, then the students become enslaved to a faulty knowledge. And as time moves on and minds like the locks indoors change with time, the old key that worked yesterday won't work today. The old knowledge of yesterday is no good necessarily in today's complex world environment. And so, unless you professors go back to school yourself, unless you who teach get away from the arrogance of your doctorate degree, unless you understand that when they conferred on you a doctorate degree, that did not mean that you were actually a doctor.
That's right.
Listen to me.
Teach us.
If you are in fact a doctor of sociology, we live in a sick society, doctor. Heal it.
Education in this country must be completely revamped. The problem is not simply that knowledge has been withheld, but that the way knowledge is presented traps both students and teachers in a cycle of arrogance and stagnation. No discipline on earth, whether psychology, sociology, astronomy, chemistry, physics, architecture, medicine, or law, has ever been brought to absolute completion. Every discipline is a work in progress. The greatest scholars of each field admitted that their knowledge was partial, imperfect, and open to correction. But when universities present these fields as finished, when they hand down textbooks as if they are sacred scripture, they rob students of the ability to question, challenge, and push forward. Knowledge becomes static, and static knowledge is dead knowledge. True education should give students the vision to stand on the shoulders of those who came before, not to bow at their feet. The job of a teacher is not to produce disciples who repeat old truths, but to produce minds capable of discovering new ones. Yet the system as it stands too often does the opposite. It enslaves students to faulty knowledge, leaving them incapable of solving the problems of a world far more complex than the world in which those disciplines were first shaped. Consider medicine. For centuries, medicine dismissed illnesses that primarily affected women as hysteria. Psychology once classified homosexuality as a mental disorder. Astronomy insisted the universe revolved around Earth. Each of these truths was treated as settled knowledge, and students were trained to accept rather than to question. Only when bold thinkers dared to see beyond their teachers did knowledge evolve. The same must happen now, for today's challenges, climate crisis, technological disruption, global inequality, cannot be met with yesterday's keys. An old key will not open a new lock, and the locks of today demand fresh insight. But there is another layer to this critique. Professors themselves must be willing to relearn. A doctorate degree is not the end of education. It is only a beginning. Too many educators carry the arrogance of their title, as if it places them above accountability. But what is a doctor of sociology in a society that is sick with racism, greed, and violence? What is a doctor of law when justice is bought and sold? What is a doctor of medicine when communities suffer from preventable diseases because they cannot afford care? The degree means nothing if the discipline is not applied to heal the wounds of society. The real measure of education is not how many books you memorize or how many letters you add to your name. It is whether your knowledge evolves, whether it equips you to diagnose the sickness of the world and labor to heal it. Without this, the system breeds arrogance instead of wisdom, compliance instead of courage. And if teachers will not humble themselves to learn again, the cycle of ignorance will continue, robbing not just Black people, but all people of the knowledge they need to survive the future. If you believe education must evolve, if you know history must be reclaimed, then stay with us. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss the messages they would rather keep buried.